year around this time, I made a video called All of the Books on My Physical TBR. I went through my bookshelves and basically read off all of the books that are on my physical TBR, which basically just means all of the books that I own that I haven't read yet. Last year, I had a really high goal for reading. I set my goal at 75 books to read in the year. And the reason I did that is because in 2023, I didn't start reading seriously or frequently until around April, and that year I ended up reading 45 books, even though I didn't start reading in depth and seriously and reading like multiple books a month until April. So I was still able to read 45 books that year. So naturally I was kind of thinking, okay, April's almost halfway through the year, not really, but kind of. How many books could I realistically read from January to April on top of the 45 that I read from April to December? And that's kind of the logic that I used to put my reading goal for last year. What I didn't take into account is that I was in college in 2023. I was not working a full-time job. I mean, I was working full-time in the summer, but totally different story. Though it felt as though I didn't have a lot of free time, I would procrastinate my college work a lot by reading. So now that I work a full-time job, it is a lot harder to find time to read because the only time that I really have to read is the weekends or after a long day of work. Sometimes after I've been using my brain a lot at work and my job does include reading and writing a lot, I am just too mentally exhausted to read. So I never took that into account. I ended up reading 45 books again last year. So even though I had the full year, I still only read 45 books. This year, I decided to meet myself in the middle with a reading goal, and I set my goal at 50 books. So hopefully I'm able to do that. I was in a major slump last year in January and only read one book in January. So far, I've already read 3 books in January. 2 of them were novellas, so they're a lot shorter, but I'm counting every cover-to-cover book. So we're on a better track this year, but who knows what's gonna happen. That being said, I made that video last year anticipating that I would read a good amount of books on my physical TBR and hoping that I wouldn't add to it too much. And let's just say that was not the case. I added quite a few books to my physical TBR last year, and it's just the truth that maybe I have a little bit of a book buying problem. I just get so excited when I hear about new releases and things that people are liking, books that are popular, that I just go out and buy them because in my mind, I'm gonna read them at some point anyway, so I might as well have a copy of it. I'm trying to cut out that thinking, and I think I've been really good about that the last couple of months, where I haven't been buying as many books just on a whim. Hopefully this year that will be less of an issue for me. That being said, last year I went kind of crazy. So I am definitely anticipating my physical TBR being larger at this point than it was last year, which is kind of disappointing because I just basically made more work for myself and whatever, but it is what it is. So anyways, I have been working on my Notion page, and I really want to start using Notion to track my reading a little bit more, to track not only what I'm reading, but how I'm feeling about the books. And I also am just going to start using Notion to track my physical TBR and what I have read from it. So that way I can physically see myself crossing things off of my physical TBR list. Hey, you baby. In order to do that, I have to log basically every book on my physical TBR. So that's why we are filming this video. I am not only going to be logging every book on my physical TBR, I am then gonna go through and show you all of the books that are on my physical TBR. I will read the title, I'll tell you who it's by, and then we will calculate at the end how many books there are on my physical TBR. Like I said, I am prepared for this number to be a little bit larger than it was last year. And by a little bit, I mean probably a lot larger. There are certain books that I'm probably not going to include on my physical TBR, and that's going to be like books that are like more books about history or books about, specific topics that I got for research reasons. And those books I'm not really like planning to read or want to get to necessarily, like it's not a priority. Those are more like to reference in certain scenarios. Not every book that I own is on the physical TBR, but my physical TBR is more going to be like books that I'm reading for enjoyment and not for like other projects or whatever. I've already gone through and logged a few of the books on my TBR or my physical TBR, but I am going to continue doing that, and I'm going to film it, and then we will go through and I will tell you all of the books that are on my physical TBR in 2025. And maybe this will become a yearly video in January, but in the spirit of honesty, I'm hoping that this video will make you feel better about your physical TBR. this is my TBR cart. This is where I put all of the books that I am like prioritizing. I am gonna go through here first and then we'll go through the bookshelves. First we have King's Cage up here, which is the third book in the Red Queen series. We have Blade Breaker, which is the second book in the Realm Breaker series. The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. By the way, these two are by Victoria Aveyard. Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. Under Lock and Key by Lana Ferguson. And The Wicked King by Holly Black, which is the second book in the Folk of the Air series. Then we have Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli, The Memoirs of Mary Queen of Scots by Carolee Erickson, The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This is just another copy of The Bridge Kingdom. This is the original, like, I think self-published version from Amazon. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is what the cover looks like. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. We also have Night Road by Kristen Hanna. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Beartown by Frederick Backman. Fear the Flame by Olivia Rose Darling. And My Last Innocent Year by Daisy Alpert Florin. We have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. The Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. And then behind that I have Lightlark by Alex Astor. Heartless by Marissa Meyer. And then behind that I have Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. And then all the way down here at the bottom I have Love Theoretically by Allie Hazelwood. Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. Good Material by Dolly Alderton. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Loved Redesigned by Lauren Asher. The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yaros. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Alone With You in the Ether by Olive E. Blake. Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. And Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. We have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood. The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. And Renegades by Marissa Meyer. On the second shelf, I don't know why, but these are all facing the wrong direction. I will try my best to show you them. A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon. Gilded by Marissa Meyer. We have A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. And then Caraval by Stephanie Garber. And up top we have The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Ex-Hex by Aaron Sterling. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. These two actually I think I'm going to need to trade out because these were on my fall TBR and I just simply didn't get to them. The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. When the Moon Hatched by, I think it's Sarah Parker. Spark of the Other Flame by Penton Cole. Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Dance of Thieves by Mary Pearson. Moving to my movie stand, I have a few miscellaneous books on this, I don't know why I called it a movie stand, but this TV stand. So these are the ones that are on my physical TBR. We have House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the Crescent City series. And then we have City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. That's the first book in the Mortal Instruments. And I have read that before, but it's been like probably almost a decade at this point. Then we have this stack. We have Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This is not on my physical TBR, it's just here, so ignore that. Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna, The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand, Winnie the Pooh by, I think it's A.A. Milne, Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, and then we have House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas, which is the third book in the Crescent City series. Moving on now to the bookshelves. I'm only obviously going to point out the ones that I haven't read, which is the majority, so let's get into it. We have A Shadow Crown by Melissa Blair, The High Mountain Court by A.K. Mulford, The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. I think this is either the second or third book in The Prison Healer. I think it's the second one. Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Adier. Cinder by Marissa Meyer. The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Road, One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake, Crimson Bound by Rosamund Hodge, A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, The Kiss of Deception by Mary Pearson, And I Darken by Kirsten White, The Beautiful by Renee Adier, The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, To Kill a Kingdom by, I don't know this author and I cannot get it out of here, so let me look it up real quick. The author is Alexandra Christo. I have This Woven Kingdom by Tahara Mafi and Unravel Me by Tahara Mafi as well. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, Three Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake, Babel by R.F. Kwong, Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan, and Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin, or Mahurin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. Down to the next shelf, we have Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, The Half-Blood Prince, and The Deathly Hallows. Those are the three that I haven't read, at least as an adult, so those are on my physical TBR. Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn. I think I read Twilight when I was younger, but again, I don't remember if I ever finished it, so these are all still technically on my physical TBR. Burning Crowns, this is the third book in the Twin Crowns trilogy by Catherine Doyle and Catherine Weber. And then we have The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. Again, I think I might have read this when I was younger, but I'm not 100% sure, but I do want to read this as an adult. Down here we have House of Marion by J.L., An Ember in the Ashes by Sabah Tahir, Vicious by V.E. Schwab, A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry, Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig, The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black, Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Rune and Rising by Lee Bardugo. Over here, technically I'm going to include this on my physical TBR because I do still think I want to give it another try, but it is currently on my DNF list. But we have The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Then I have House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland, Bells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young, The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco, This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab, I think that's what this one is, and Belladonna by Adeline Grace. The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, Hooked by Emily McIntyre, Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and I think that's all for my physical TBR down there. Moving to my other bookshelf, we have The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther, The Graham Effect and The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I think I already mentioned Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh, but this is just a special edition. Life's Too Short and Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt, Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore, The Last Letter by Rebecca Yaros, Love on the Brain and Not in Love by Allie Hazelwood. On this shelf, we have Forever Never, Pretend You're Mine and By a Thread by Lucy Score, Off to the Races by Elsie Silver, Heartless by Elsie Silver, this is the second book in the Chestnut Springs, Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, Twisted Love by Anna Huang, Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry, A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. Down here, the 3 out of the 4 books that I haven't read in Magnolia Parks are Daisy Hates Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home, and Daisy Hates the Great Undoing. And then these are just 2 extra copies of the first 2. The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith, Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson, Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey, The Cheat Sheet and the Rule Book by Sarah Adams, Hello Stranger in the Rom-Commers by Catherine Center, The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson, Paper Princess by Erin Watt, and I read the original 3 of these books in middle school, so I'm counting them as read, but I do want to reread the series. And this one, the last one, I guess we could count as being on my physical TBR. Down on this shelf, we have Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout, Red Rising by Pierce Brown, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, The Inheritance Games, and Bad Blood and All In by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, Lovely War by Julie Berry, The Betrothed and the Betrayed by Kiera Cass. This is the same author as the Selection series. Summer Sisters by Judy Bloom, The Last Letter from Your Lover by Jojo Moyes, This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone, and Amal L. Motar, Annie Bot by Sierra Greer, Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. And lastly, down here, if you can see, we have Circe by Madeline Miller, Piranesi by Susanna Clark, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, Verity by Colleen Hoover, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, The Eye of the Queen by Oliver Clements, The Windsor Knot by S.J. Bennett, and The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. The other books down there are just random. Okay, I also do have a few books on this shelf. The ones over here I'm unhauling, but over here I have a few that I would consider to be on my physical TBR. So I have Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, A Man Called Ove, also by Frederick Bachman, and then I have Animal Farm and 1984 by George Orwell. Then I have Lord of the Flies by William Golding and Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. On to the last shelf. This is definitely the shelf that has, I would say, the greatest percentage of read books. But on this shelf, From Blood and Ashes on my physical TBR, this is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And then over here, Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco and The Serpent and Wings of the Night by Carissa Broadbent. And then on the bottom, all the books on this side are read. Over here, Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo is on my physical TBR, and also War Storm and Broken Throne by Victoria Aveyard. And then lastly, over here, we have Fatebreaker by Victoria Aveyard and Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. So those are all of the books on my physical TBR at the beginning of 2025. I did log them all into my Notion so that I could keep track of them. And, you know, at the end of the year or month by month, I'll go in and update them based on what I've read and which ones of them I can cross off my physical TBR. But if my calculations are correct, there are 206 books on my physical TBR, which is a little bit ridiculous. I think I need to go on a book buying ban, so that might be one big goal for me at the beginning of this year. Maybe for Q1, I'm just going to try and buy as few books as possible. So that being said, we have probably over between 40 and 50 books, I think, more than we did last year on my physical TBR. So it's not looking great in terms of that. I didn't do a good job of reading off my physical TBR last year, but I am committed to making progress on my physical TBR this year, and hopefully I can think back to this video and remember how ridiculous it is that I have over 200 books on my physical TBR, and hopefully that will motivate me to read what I already have instead of going out and buying new books. Also, I do have a Kindle and I've been using Libby a lot more, so I think that will help kind of persuade me not to go out and help kind of assuage my need and temptation to go to Barnes & Noble. Yeah, that is everything on my physical TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are here from last year's video and you saw how many I had last year, I'm sorry to disappoint that I have actually even more this year, but let me know down below what you're gonna be reading this year, how many books you have on your physical TBR. I'm excited to see what you guys are up to and what your reading stats are. I really hope this video made you feel better about your physical TBR, because let me tell you, having over 200 books does not feel great. That being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time in my next video.